the level 10 is inspired by level 10. Damn it, level 20, not level 10. All right. What's up, guys? I'm Dimitri with HardwareCanucks here at Thermaltake, checking out their new level 20. So they're celebrating 20 years as a company, and this has been inspired by level 10. If you guys recall that for, what, 10 years ago, I'm guessing? Paneling. So obviously you can see that here too. Triple chamber layout with the main chamber for your system. It's kind of like a compact mid-tower. A very large section in the front that accommodates radiators and cooling and reservoirs and tubing. And then the top chamber is basically just for your power supply and to accommodate the entirety of this cohesion of this whole channeling. There's the biggest rubber grommet that I have ever seen inside there. It's kind of hilarious and kind of cool at the same time. And by the way, this video is sponsored by Fantex, Cooler Master, and Corsair. Thanks to our sponsors for making this video possible. So starting off with the top I/O, so we got 4 USB 3s, a Type-C port. This is a first for Thermaltake, and just the general I/O panel. And then moving into this front chamber. So I asked them as to why it has to be this big and why this entire case. I mean, this thing is gigantic. You probably gain some, gains by lifting this thing around. But it's about, perspective and what's the word? You know what I'm talking about? Like when different sizes. What's the word? So what I meant to say was that the chambers are laid out this way so that it looks to scale. So if you had very nice compact sort of mid-tower section here, and if this was anything smaller, the whole thing would just look, out of proportions. Proportions, that's the word. Okay. Okay, so in this front chamber, what we can do is basically it's meant to be for radiator, and you can mount up to a 480 millimeter at the front. It's this wide as well because you can route reservoir, and this whole thing is just kind of dedicated for your water cooling hardware. And one of the cool things is that you can route your stuff from either the bottom or the top into this main chamber and collect and connect everything throughout. All right, so removing the front panel. Oh no, it got locked. Okay, there we go. It sits on this little toolless hinge at the top. And here, basically, you can see you have full access to that entire chamber. You can remove the fan bracket, install your fans, install your radiator, install your reservoir, and have that entire nice accessibility for that entire thing in the front. And in the main chamber, as you can see here, we have additional rubber grommets above here, so you can pass your tubing through that, and you don't have to utilize the very bottom or the very top. And additionally, if you don't potentially want to use any water cooling, you can populate 6 drive caddies that will be for your storage compartment. And as for the side panels, so we have 3 tempered glass side panels, and they're all tempered glass, nicely tinted with nice blackout perimeter, and they all sit on nice quality hinges and are secured with this toolless mechanism on top. Now, in terms of illumination and the fancy element, they're still unclear about how many fans to include and what type of LED strips, but the built-in LED strips in between the chamber are a nice way to actually separate between the front and this section here, and they kind of this transparent illumination that connects to their hub, so you can control the lighting, the effects, and all that stuff. So let's move on to this chamber. So here we have eATX support. Right now we have a standard ATX motherboard layout. At the front here, we have another radiator support for a 360 millimeter radiator, or you can do like a 280 millimeter radiator in there as well. The vertical GPU bracket comes included, and it's incredibly sturdy. This is not going anywhere. At the bottom here, so there is some space for SSD caddies. And one of the cool things you can notice is the tubing from the front chamber. So the whole idea is that you can mount all your water cooling support here and route your tubing below. So it's a little bit hidden, it's a little bit discreet, but as soon as it enters into the main chamber, you can go crazy. You can use your creativity to disperse that that tubing for really cool showcase. Right now, it's a little bit boring, but it does showcase on exactly how that tube passes through those chambers. And then we enter into this hilarious top chamber. Again, the perspective here needs to be present, obviously, which is why this top chamber, which houses only a power supply, but it looks hilarious because the thing is like another micro ITX, or like not micro ITX, like a mini ITX enclosure. All right, so the power supply is mounted vertically, so you can see the fan and the illumination. Obviously, it's a Thermaltake power supply that is illuminated, but Eber, check this out. We have this giant, it's probably the size of an ITX motherboard, rubber grommet that allows all your power supply cables and all the tubing to pass through from the main chamber into the power supply chamber and then enter into your, water cooling chamber there. So it's definitely an interesting approach. Obviously, the space gray and the design layout, I really like this. It's not my style in particular because the thing is just ginormous and I wouldn't know what to do with it. But in terms of modularity, so because it's aluminum panels, you can go crazy with creativity in terms of coloring it or, you know, doing certain cutouts. But unfortunately, you can't easily remove the front section or the top section. And that would be something that I would love to see. But if you are committed to disassembling this thing, it is a possibility. So there's some rivets, there's some screws, so you can go nuts. Now, so for a case this size, I was expecting to see maybe support for a dual system because this whole thing, you know, it's quite large. You could probably fit something inside, and you potentially could, but I'm kind of, you know, it's kind of sucks that Thermaltake didn't include that as your default support. But they're seeing it as like this really high quality premium enclosure though, so people are most likely just going to do something simple and just enjoy the novelty of having something like it. So now comes the price point talk. So the thing will be launched at $999, so $1,000. You know, on top of my head, it's going to be competing with the Phantix Elite, which is $899. You know, it has a lot more options for the user, but obviously this thing looks a lot different. So if you potentially love the looks and you just fall in love with something that you could potentially explore on how to navigate your hardware throughout all these 3 chambers, then yeah, go nuts. And coming to the back, as you can see, it's quite bare, a little bit standard, no tempered glass side panel, but of course that aluminum structure is continuing here. And I really love this perforation over here because obviously that's where the exhaust happens from that main chamber, and it follows the same toolless approach for removing that side panel. And because this case is so wide, like it's really wide, you have 1 inch and some 2 inches of cable management room. So you, regardless of what you put in there, regardless of how many hubs, how many fans, how many whatever cables, you'll be fine. All right, guys, so that's it for the level 20. What do you think about that large enclosure? For the size, I feel like the options and the hardware configuration are a little bit limited, but maybe that's the whole point. Thermaltake is trying to channel your particular build into a specific direction, so you enjoy the case and you enjoy the building experience. But yeah, what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next video.